Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jake, this is Nadia, this is Buddy, this is Sedona, this is Babu. Today we are talking about Saltburn. Some people have asked us to talk about this movie. I initially wasn't thinking about covering this because I didn't really think you were going to like it, but it appears to be extremely popular, or at least divisive. A lot of people picking sides on if it's a great movie, if it's a bad movie. I have no idea what you think of the film, so please tell me.
I think you have some idea because we made a lot of reaction
No.
the film.
You had a visceral reaction to a lot of this film. I think
it was very graphic, and I couldn't even watch all of the graphic one. I kind of had to put my head like on the side and let you kind of just narrate it and let me know like when it's over.
First off, we're doing non-spoilers first, then spoilers if you haven't seen the film.
Non-spoilers, I would give this movie a 7 out of 10. Probably.
Interesting.
Which is, decent. I mean, like, it's really good. I mean, the parts that, like, I struggled to give it between 6 and 7. And the reason why I gave it 7 out of 6 is because I would have only given it 6 because, not because the movie wasn't well made or whatever. It's because, like, some of the scenes were just absolutely disgusting and hard to watch. But I just didn't think that was fair. I thought it was... honestly, I could give it probably a 7.5. I don't like the ending very much, which we can talk about in the spoiler section, but I thought, like, it was just so funny. It was disgusting. It was heartwarming, and it really did make me feel bad for people that I normally don't feel bad for. And it was really dynamic. It had some surprises at the end as well, you know? It's such a rare movie. You don't really see movies like this very often. The storyline, I think, was not necessarily original, but like the way that it was done, the storyline with the way that it was directed, the cinematography, I thought it really came together very well. I thought the actors were phenomenal. I thought they did a really good job at making us like or hate them, confuse us. Yeah, I would give it 7.5 out of 10. But it's so funny. Like, some of the scenes and character choices are so funny. Like, I can't get into it without going to spoilers. It kind of also felt like Downton Abbey gone wrong. Like, it felt like, if you've ever watched Downton Abbey, I felt like this was like me watching like their like great grandchildren. This is what I thought. Like, I was like, this is what their children are gonna become one day. What did you think?
At the time while I was watching, I thought this is fine, but I don't think it's a very serious movie in the kind of way that Logan Roy, you're not serious children, you know.
You're not serious people.
Yeah, you're not serious people. It was trying to do something earnestly at first, and then it kind of just turned into like, let's just try to be shocking. And not even in like a necessarily clever way. It's very inspired by like the talented Mr. Ripley and Patricia Highsmith, the kind of character who's obsessed with someone, wants to become them, and has kind of had an interesting perspective in that sense. I like how it was set in 2006. It is entertaining, and I thought the script kind of pulled you along in terms of like the cause and effect of what he does, and you want him to be in his good graces. But then almost a little too quickly, you start to see that Oliver is just weird and maybe like a sociopath. Once that happens, you aren't really caring as much about the events of the film. At least that's what I found.
I disagree with that, but I'll let you go.
It just got too ridiculous. Like it literally just became kind of too ridiculous because in some scenes it feels like the movie's trying to be a satire of the upper class, and clearly it's trying to be sort of a political film. It's talking and dealing very specifically in issues of class. You have the upper class, you have the person trying to achieve higher than where he is, and it's all about money. He doesn't have enough money, and he's just trying to ingratiate himself with this person because he's obsessed with him. He loves him, but maybe he just loves the money more than anything. He likes the lifestyle of these ultra wealthy old money people.
At first, you see this character Ollie, who you don't know if he's a good guy or bad, but then you start to think, oh my god, he's way too nice. He's like genuinely out of his way nice. You know, we see their bond, and you kind of like thinking that you're gonna see like this guy who comes from a poor background to a lower middle class background adjust to lifestyle and spend summer with this rich guy who's literally living in a mansion. It's like, put yourself in Ollie's shoes and be like, wow, these people are kind of crazy with their rituals and their nobility and the way that they perform things. Ollie isn't exactly what he seems. You start to get some like hints from his attitude as things escalate that I can't really go into because it'd be spoilers. And that's really when like things start to turn a little bit more ridiculous, when you start to see like Ollie is not really all there.
Yes, for the most part of the movie, it was entertaining, even if it was just like, oh, this is so weird, and there's some like goofy scenes, and it's so over the top in terms of like trying to push the boundaries that it's like, all right, clearly the writer, director is just trying to like get a reaction out of people. It felt almost like if it didn't have those boundary pushing scenes, it would be a way more boring movie, and the story itself doesn't really hold up under scrutiny. And I think that the actual, and I'm not one to like harp down on a movie for its political message, not saying it's a political message, but the subtext of the movie, for most of the movie, it's like, okay, these wealthy people are ridiculous. But by the end of the movie, it kind of felt like the message was these middle class people are going to ruin everything if you let them, give them even an inch of anything. Maybe that's not what everyone comes away with the movie. I felt like that's kind of maybe unintentionally that's the result.
I didn't think that way,
the message.
I didn't think that way at all, though.
Okay. That's just what it seemed like. It was just like, what is this filmmaker trying to say? Because clearly they're trying to say something, but ultimately it's either so muddled or it comes out completely opposite to what they intend, or it's just kind of hollow and there wasn't anything. So ultimately, that's why I'm rating the movie like a 4 or 5 out of 10.
Wow.
While it was entertaining, for the most part, there were some repetitive stuff. It just felt like a little empty and kind of shallow.
Although I can see your perspective of what the end goal, like what the end message could be portrayed, I think that it could also be just like not necessarily, this is not a great comparison, granted, and I know that, but this is the only thing I can think of right now is the American Psycho. And it's just like there is a little hidden message there about wealth, and this movie does have that. There's a lot of extravagant spending, living, just ridiculousness of the richness, and I think that's kind of like a hint of message similar to American Psycho.
Like, unlike American Psycho, it makes it feel very appealing and attractive. American Psycho makes it look creepy and fake.
No, I don't think so. I think that it does make it look unappealing at the very end because, I mean, it just depends. If you're a psychopath, it probably looks appealing. If you're not psychopath, then you probably are like, whoa, you go through all of that to try to do XYZ. That's kind of crazy. You're obviously, I think that each to its own, but for me, what came what the message that I got out of the movie was that be careful who you befriend. And it wasn't necessarily anything to do with class as much. I mean, yes, it was actually to do with class because obviously one position is in a greater power wealth-wise than the other, but psychologically this person was going to manipulate whoever they could get their hands on. I think almost like you're watching like a horror film of a person who is willing to do whatever they want to fulfill their part of their fantasy, And I don't know if we can get talk anymore without getting to spoilers.
I just want to say real quick, because you mentioned American Psycho. I think American Psycho is a super effective satire of a specific type of wealth and attitude in the 1980s and everything. But this movie, it felt like at times it was trying to be a satire of the wealthy, but also not. Like, it was also just trying to be a drama and or sort of a twisted romance. Some of the characters felt fleshed out, but a lot of the characters, the mom, the dad, the sister, felt like caricatures you'd see in a satire. We're presented with these caricatures, and then by the end we're going, okay, maybe the filmmaker's kind of trying to side with them or not really even trying to critique them in a serious way. That's what I mean. It just didn't feel like all of the like movie feels like it's going in this direction of we're trying to critique this kind of world, and then at the end it goes, no, actually they're kind of the good guys, like okay. What's really bad about them, they're overindulgent, etc., but they're not crazy.
Okay. Can we get into spoilers?
All right.
Because it's really hard to reply to you.
So hard. All right. Let's get into spoilers.
3, 2, 1.
Spoilers.
Okay. Don't think that it was like showing like rich good. I think it was more showing like obviously Ollie, we find out like he says his dad dies, and we find out later on that he was only doing that to get Felix's sympathy and to be invited to his house possibly in the summer. We see that he planned like every single interactions with Felix and did everything possible to be invited and to be part of that. When Felix finds out that Ollie has been lying and sees Felix for who he is, which is like really a psychopath, at that time we also find out like Ollie's parents are like, Ollie always wanted to be the only child, so I'm not surprised that he didn't mention his siblings to you and all these things. And then you see Ollie kill Felix, you see Ollie possibly kill definitely kill or lead Felix's sister to suicide.
And then he's kicked out, and then the dad ends up dying, then he ends up killing the mom.
Yeah, exactly. And then you could see like and you know, Ollie was also like stalking the mom in the cafeteria afterwards, just at the spot that she would be in, to be able to like meet again after the dad kicks him out. So the dad could see through his bullshit, but then Ollie was able to fool the mom. I think the satire, or at least the criticism in this, is really about like the extravagance of the dinner. Like you have to dress in a gown and a suit, and like that's why I compared it to Downton Abbey earlier, is because you do that kind of lifestyle like 1900s or even like before that. Just, you know, you have to dress up, you have to look elegant, you're a nobility, you have to act like it. Also, these people have extreme amount of wealth that they don't know what to do with. I mean, they're throwing parties, they're doing this and this and this every single time. I also found it interesting how they all gather in the smallest room to watch TV, even though they have like so much excess space that they don't use. It's just mostly about sex and partying, their lifestyle, and they don't have any grip in reality. Like, and Ollie is able to see the naivete in their everyday life experience because they're so much in a bubble of the richness of consumption, of the richness of it all, is able to use that and turn it against them to benefit himself. So for example, when Ollie, you know, when they kick out that lady who's going through like depressive episodes, and then Ollie's like, well, she's just being manipulative, she's just being dramatic to get attention, right? And then she ends up committing suicide, and then the mom
she'd do anything for attention.
Yeah, exactly. The mom repeats that. So he's building rapport just by like saying, these are this type of people. I know what kind of people you are. I know the shell that you live in. I'm going to pretend to be one of you, and I'm going to sympathize with you in that way, so that you can gain my trust and we can be in the same lane. I think the only person who doubted Ollie was really the sister, and also the best friend who ended up getting kicked out. It's really like some people, and he was able to target those people to not have them be like an obstacle anymore. Of course, at the end, the dad suspects something too. The dad is like, you are in my wife's space. You're obviously like, she's emotionally reliant on you. It's not healthy. You need to get out, and pays him off to do that, you know? So there is some hints, but then because like when the best friend cries when Felix dies, and then the mom and dad are just talking about food and trying to like talk about something else but their grief, the dad says to the best friend, we don't want your American emotions. So I think the problem with them inside is that because they're so much like trained in this aristocratic way of life where you don't talk about your feelings, but maybe it's also a little bit more British thing, is that like they don't tell each other that, hey, there's something could be wrong with Ollie. They just kind of like don't talk about their feelings. And I think if they had talked about their feelings, like had Felix told his parents, sister, or whatever, what he found out, things probably would have been different. Maybe not for Felix himself, but for the rest of his family, and had his dad like expressed his thoughts or whatever. And they're just like, they don't know each other, and that's really like, they just live in a gilded cage that they built for themselves, and they don't know each other. They don't know how to express each other. They just know how to extravagantly live a lifestyle that they were born into. Felix, he seems like the only character who's somewhat normal, but even him himself is, you can see, is twisted from his upbringing. So
no, it felt like Felix, that's what I didn't like, is that it seemed like Felix and Oliver were just painted as perfection and the devil. You know, you had Felix just being a perfect angel, you know, and being lovely and
he wasn't
such
a
good
perfect
person.
angel though.
He was pretty, compared to everyone else in the movie.
The way that he like, did you see how he treated girls?
Well, no.
He discarded girls all the time. He was just like good.
I mean, in terms of the rest of the characters in the movie,
yeah.
He was the best character, and then Oliver is like the devil, and even in that party scene, you know, they're dressed up as angel and devil, kind of cheeky. But the movie, it felt like it wanted to be self-aware about how it's kind of like almost like a trashy kind of story, you know, where just this guy is picking off the family and killing them, but didn't know how far to take the comedy or how seriously to develop these characters. Because I don't know about you, but I personally felt more invested in the story at the beginning of the movie than I did at the end of the movie. By the end of the movie, things felt like he's just evil, so he's just going to kill everyone. So did you get less invested?
I didn't get less invested. I was just more so ready for the movie to be done, just because it was so gruesome. Like
But it become predictable.
I thought it was so funny though. Like it definitely, I didn't get less invested. Like for example, when Felix dies and then Oliver is literally humping the grave.
But that's what I mean. Like, are we supposed to take it this serious? Like, once that kind of stuff happens, once he licks the bathwater, once he, once these things happen, is like, are we really taking this seriously? Or are you just trying to be like a shocking and try to get under our skin? And yeah, it's funny. And it's like, are we just doing a good comedy? Or are we actually talking about these class issues, which you're trying to clearly discuss? And
no, I think it's trying to be shocking while at the same time trying to say something subliminally about the rich life. But I think most of it is more so, look at this crazy guy, psycho who succeeds at the end.
Maybe it's trying to do both, and I don't think it did either very well. And then what gets left is these characters, which at the beginning it felt like more nuanced because we're going, oh, this is interesting because we have this poor character kind of trying to fit in with the rich lifestyle and how's he going to react with these things. Really quickly, it becomes apparent that Oliver, there's something up with him and we're going, is he actually who he is?
Change, yeah.
His attitude's very like that scene, that was just so like, what? Like even after the bathwater scene, which like, all right, the period blood scene was just like, I said that out loud. I'm like, this is a different character. And then after then, from the whole movie, you're just going like, all right, when is he going to snap? When is he going to kill Felix? We're just like waiting for him to kill Felix. And then once that happens, we're like, okay, he's going to have to kill the sister now. And then the dad and the mom. And it's like all that interesting complexity early on in the movie just got lost. So that when we get to the funeral scene, the movie doesn't tell us that Felix killed, or that Oliver killed Felix, but we know. Like,
well, no, it does tell.
No.
We get a flashback about
at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
But at that point in the movie, we're just going like, it's supposed to be like, we don't know how he died.
No, it's pretty obvious.
It's insanely obvious. Yeah. But then the movie is still trying to treat it earnestly when he's grieving. There's a long scene where he's out at the grave, and it's like, I don't feel anything. I don't think it's that. I'm not feeling anything. He clearly killed him. And then he starts fucking the grave. And it's like, okay, clearly this movie is just like not being serious.
No.
Anymore.
That's not how I saw it.
This is just not a serious movie.
I completely disagree with you. That's not how I saw it. I saw it as he being a psychopath and narcissistic himself is like, you maybe, I thought maybe like for a second, like I was pushed to kill you. Like I had to do this. Like he was victimizing himself. Like, man, I wish I didn't have to kill you, but this is what I had to do. And he was like grieving the fact that he had to kill him because he never had a friend before. Even though he made that choice and I don't think he would have made anything different. He was just like, oh man, I have to abuse you. It sucks because we made such a good connection and I've never had a connection with anyone else, but I have to kill you. It was kind of like the psychopathic and I think it's supposed to be a funny thing. Like, I don't think it was supposed to be like, I think you're thinking about it.
So at that point, it's just a pure comedy?
I don't think it's a pure comedy. I think it's a twisted comedy, dark comedy. Like,
because even the family, even the scene where they're grieving at the dinner table, trying to close the curtains, I was just laughing because it didn't feel at certain points I was laughing because it felt like this is very mannered and very stylized. And clearly this isn't how any human being would behave.
Maybe I think it's a satire. That's why I compared it to American Psycho because I think it's like blown up kind of like outside of what we can see as normal, like
but
concept.
The movie clearly doesn't start out like that. It's clearly not a
No, I know, but I think that's...
So it's a tonal problem.
No, I don't think so. I think that's intentional. I think they're trying to be like, you thought this is what you're watching, but this is actually what you're watching. I think it's like you're watching two different movies, but I think it's intentional.
But what is it satirizing?
I think it's satirizing the extravagance of rich life and the fact that like how easily these people are manipulated by just having yes people around them. I think it's also like you put a psycho in the middle of that and then, these people are rich. You don't feel sorry for them. And then do you? Yeah, you start to feel sorry for them because they're clearly being taken advantage of.
You feel sorry for them?
I feel sorry for the fact that they lost their kids and, all that stuff. I think you feel sorry for the emptiness that they have inside that they're clearly trying to fulfill with money because they don't know anything else, outside of this lifestyle. And it's just interesting because like Oliver himself, he's not like poor. We see that he comes from a good middle class background. They seems like they have a comfortable life. And it's not like we're seeing from someone who's like from the slums to, he comes from a comfortable background. It's just not enough for him, right? He just doesn't have empathy. You could see the way that his parents were so loving towards him and everything else. He just doesn't have any empathy.
Well,
so you can't go ahead.
So maybe what I'm bumping up against is the tone of the satire and the mixtures of tones, because what you're talking about, how it's a satire, but we're also seeing the grief and tragedy of the circumstances, and we're supposed to relate to the tragedy and feel for them, but also laugh at the satire.
But I did both.
Right. I personally felt like it was incongruous, like it didn't work perfectly. The thing is, I think it can be done well, and I think Succession is an example of a movie or a show that can satirize these people, but you also feel for them, because I think the tone is balanced right with the comedy, and I just don't think that it felt almost like the comedy was too broad with the tragedy being too big and overblown. It felt like I wasn't feeling all I needed to feel for these characters, and I wasn't laughing as much at them as I needed to. Like, it didn't mix enough for me personally. And I understand, like, if that worked, I think it was still entertaining, but it just felt like maybe that's what my issue is. Like, it just doesn't feel tonally consistent throughout the whole movie.
I agree. Like, I think Succession does do it better, but I don't know. It's a show that was on for 5 seasons. There's a really long time to really build up these characters, whereas in a movie length, I don't know if I think this movie was well made enough for what it was trying to do. I don't really agree with you. I just see it differently. I felt like the tonal shift was definitely there, but it didn't bother me. It felt very intentional to me, and it didn't feel like it was a mistake or poorly done. It was like, okay, I can see in my point of view, like the director is making this choice on purpose to shift the tone, and this is just their style, and maybe it just doesn't agree with you. That's just what I think.
I have one more question for you. Do you think that the final series of flashbacks, do you think that was to show the audience Oliver actually killed these people, or do you think it was just kind of reinforcing all of the things he's done since the beginning? Because I've seen some reviews where people are saying, was that supposed to be like a twist ending? Did you think it was a twist?
No, I think it was reinforcing everything.
Because I didn't see it as a twist.
I think it was like, you think that if you thought that he changed, I think it's pretty obvious that he was planning all of this, at least from the point of view where he gets, where Felix discovers him for who he really is. It's pretty obvious what's going to happen. But I think at the end, it's like, if you thought that he was going to change, if you thought that he was fooling, I think it's just kind of like to have it come full circle where he moves Felix's mom's tube, which, by the way, that's the only thing that it doesn't make sense to me. I mean, there's a lot that, this is not a movie that it's extravagant, but at the end, it's like, aren't you supposed to go to jail? Isn't that like it's very unrealistic, but then he goes and dances around the whole house, full nudity and everything else with I think that scene is kind of like, I am fully naked now, not just physically, but all my secrets are out and I don't care, because we see the scene where he gets all the money and she signed her will over or whatever else. I'm untouchable now. Look at me now. I'm untouchable. That's what I thought it was.
It definitely has its good aspects, and I thought there were good performances, funny moments, and everything. So it's not like I hate it. It just, I don't think it worked super well. But
let us know what you think.
Let us know what you think.
And which one of us you agree with. Otherwise, let us know what else we should watch, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.